Kia ora. I think I'm live. Hello, everyone. I think it's going to take a little while for people to settle in. So I'm just going to give it a minute. I hope that you're settling in. Let me know when you're on. Let me know when you've got a drink and you're getting comfy. I was going to have a drink too, but it's 10 o'clock here in Pornica in Wellington, in Aotearoa, and I have to get up very early in the morning, so I'm drinking tea. I'm Clare Moleta, and I am here to talk about my first novel, Unsheltered. I think you can see it on screen too. So yeah, I hope people are settling in, getting comfy. Yeah, let me know if you're here, and I will shortly. I thought what I might do, just while people are getting set up and sitting down. Hi, Jane. Oh, nice to see you there. I thought I might just start off by reading a page from this book because it's my first book and it hasn't been out very long. Hi, Kylie. Oh, great, a question. Fantastic. Kylie, give me 1 minute and I'll start because I think we've probably got some more people to join. I will come back to that. That is a good question. And thank you. Hi, Tracy. Nice. Oh, nice to see someone from Sydney. Yeah, I might just start by reading a page just to give you a little bit of a sense of the book and the main character, Lee, and then I'm going to come back and answer some questions. Hayford Hill, very nice to see you. That's a friend of mine. It's nice to have a friend on. Hi, Anne. Oh, great. This is lovely. Look, I'll just start. People can come in through it, and then we'll talk again. Hi, Kityu. Nice to see you. All right. So I'm just going to read a page. At this point, we're about that far into the book. It's about page 82. And all you really need to know to set this up is that the main character, Lee, has been looking for her daughter. She's got an 8-year-old daughter who's gone missing. And at this point, she's been looking for her for about a week. She's in a really hostile environment, kind of abandoned farmland, sort of in the interior of a place like Australia, not exactly Australia. And she's been walking for a long time. She's really tired. She has to sleep. So when she sees an abandoned house, she would normally be pretty suspicious, but she decides she's going to go in and sleep there. Hi, Alison and Jenny and Kylie. Oh, great. Nice to see you all. All right. She dug a hole under the bushes for her pack and ground mat, but she kept the torch and the pistol. The knife was in her belt. She went into the house steadily, holding the torch over the gun. All the rooms on the ground floor were empty. She would sleep down there, near the back door, once she'd checked the upper rooms. She was almost at the top of the stairs when a man came out of darkness onto the landing. When she turned around, there were 2 more down below, blocking the exit. She didn't know where they'd come from. Turned back and lined up her pistol on the man upstairs and kept going onto the landing, her hands shaking hard. He paused long enough for her to reach the window, but then she had to turn her back on him again to kick at the boards, blind and violent, and she heard him coming. Not hurrying, now he'd guessed the gun was a bluff, that there was no way out. And Lee felt the same inevitability, something essential draining away inside her. But as she dropped the gun and reached for the knife, she felt something start to give under her boot, a rotten plank. He ran at her as it splintered, shouting to the others, feet on the stairs, and she dropped the torch and turned and steadied the knife with both hands, aiming for his heart in the dark as he ran right up against her, right onto it. The point of entry cleaved muscle and sinew, not his heart but his shoulder, up into the armpit. They fell back against the boards together and the boards gave way. She could feel his heart beating, but then he let go, sucking air, and she wrenched the knife out of him and forced her way through the window without looking. The roof of the porch broke her fall, but it threw her balance too. She rolled, fell again, and landed on the hard dirt below with her ankle bent under her. A burst of pain. She tried to get up, couldn't. No time anyway. She could hear the others coming. Couldn't think. pressed against the edge of the porch and felt a gap in the planks low down that shouldn't have been big enough, but she forced herself backwards through it. The door banged open and they ran out onto the porch directly above her. Kia ora to everyone who's joined while I was reading. Hi, Mary from Melbourne. Hope you're all hanging in there in Melbourne. I spent a lot of happy years there. That must be, we're thinking of you over here. It's pretty tough going again. And Shanda from Melbourne. Debbie from England, Northeast England. Wow. And oh God, there's so many. Oh, okay. I'm gonna have to get back to everybody. Wendy from Wagga Wagga. Oh, it's great hearing where everyone is. I'm Clare Moleta. I'm talking about my first novel, Unsheltered. That was just a little intro to the kind of book it is, I guess the style and the main character, who's a pretty resourceful survivor type of woman. I had a question already about what inspired me to write. Now, I have to go back up. From Kylie Fent. Hi, Claire. What inspired you to become an author? Congratulations on your first novel. Thanks, Kylie. It does feel like it's taken me a long time to publish my first novel. So, and it's not the first book I've written, but it's the first one that's made it into the world. I'm probably one of those people who always wrote, as a kid, and sort of took it for granted it was just something I did. So it took me quite a long time to work out that it was what I really wanted to do. I suppose I got more serious about it in my 20s, which is quite a long time ago now, but I'm a really late bloomer. I get inspired by real things in the world, I think. This book, Unsheltered, seems to be a collection of a whole lot of things that have preoccupied me for most of my adult life. There's climate change in it. There are people seeking refuge, people who've lost their homes and they're trying to find a safe place. There's motherhood, which is something I've been more preoccupied with, I guess, since becoming a parent. But, ideas about motherhood and what a mother's supposed to be and whether she can be anything apart from the sort of the cliches. So I guess a lot of real things and real people inspire me, even though I write fiction. And I should probably tell you a little bit about the book. There's so many people to say hello to. Hi, Jenny McCabe. I'm not sure if I said hello to Jenny from Cairns. Christine Connolly, can't wait to get hold of your book. Thanks, Christine. It hasn't been out long. I think it's been out maybe 3 weeks in Australia and less time here in Aotearoa because books get stuck on ships now, in this world we're living in. So I think I had a launch here just last week. So it's really still feels really new for me to be holding a book in my hand. Hi, Melinda, regional Victoria. You're in lockdown too, or you're just coming out of lockdown, I think. Fingers crossed. And Kylie Fent says, love the suspense. I might have to get this one so I can discover what happens. It is suspenseful. It's got a lot of action in it. I should tell you a bit about the plot. It's essentially a story about a mother searching for her daughter in really difficult circumstances. And it takes place in a place that's like Australia. I think I've been saying it's Australian, but it's not Australia. So a lot of things about it will seem familiar, but it's not quite Australia as you know it. It's not right now. And there are some funny differences. There are bits of geography that aren't the same. There's a lot of differences in the social structure and climate. Things are just much worse, basically. There's this thing called weather with a capital W, which is a pretty low-key, polite way of describing every kind of terrifying climate event, from bushfires to, massive long-term drought to dust storms, tornadoes, floods, all of that. And Lee goes through pretty much all of those things during the course of this book. At the start of it, Lee is living in a small rural community, a farming community in the west of this continent with her young daughter and her partner, Frank. And they've been in drought for a really long time. Her child has never seen rain, doesn't really know what rain is, but they're making a go of it. They're getting by. And then in a really short space of time, a series of weather events destroys their home, destroys their community, and they go on the road along with many, many other people. So in this world, there are unsheltered people, and Lee and Matty and Frank are unsheltered, and there are sheltered people, and they live inside sort of these walled precincts that supposedly protect them more. And the unsheltered people are trying to get into the sheltered places. They lose Frank pretty early on. You don't find out how straight away. That's one of the suspenseful things. And then Lee and Matty get separated in a kind of a refugee camp. And then Lee spends the rest of the book trying to find her daughter, basically. That's the action. Now, I'm trying really hard. There's so many people I'm going to have to go back and read all of these afterwards because I don't know if I'm going to keep up. Hi, Tracy Anderson, and hi, Lynette. Susie's in Canberra. This is neat. It's like a map. We're all in a map, except that I'm, south of you. Lynn Kelly says, oh, wow, that's got us on the edge of our seat. Hello from the Yarra Valley in Melbourne. And yes, it's awful what we're going through. Every friend I talk to in Melbourne, mostly they tell me that everyone else is worse off than them and they're fine. But, you've had a really rough run. And you just can't seem to, catch a break. Kylie, welcome aboard England. Nice. Hoppers Crossing, Victoria. And Lee is in Hoppers Crossing. There's so many familiar names. Jane Tara. Oh, you've read it, Jane. Unsheltered is a brilliant read. Good on you for getting in so early. How long did it take to write? Okay. I started writing it. Well, I wrote the first draft in 2017. I did an MA in creative writing, which was the first time in my life, I guess going back to that question of what inspired me to be a writer, I think that was the first time in my life that I actually set aside a really solid amount of time and said, this is what I'm doing. So I had my family, I had some work, but other than that, all I was doing that year was writing. I basically cancelled everything else. I hardly saw my friends. I didn't do any of the things I normally do. And so in 8 months, I wrote 100,000 words, which is very high achieving for me. I think the previous book I'd written, which didn't get published, took me 8 years to write. So that was my 30s, basically. I spent my 30s. And I've got this theory, because I'm working on another book now, that I'm going to write 2 books in my 40s. That's my plan. So that was 2017. So it's just been published. I guess I've been revising, reworking, and sending it out. Not necessarily in that order, sending it out to agents and then getting feedback and then revising. And I did that for about 3 years. So it felt like a really long haul. It definitely takes me a long time. Took me a long time. And I guess I was finished with it pretty much in January this year. Because once I got an agent and then a publisher, then you have these amazing editors who help you to make the book so much better. And so there was, 2 rounds of editing and then proofreading. But to be honest, Jane, I change it every time I read it still. I'm still editing. Whenever I read it, I'll go, oh, I could cut that bit, or, So I'm not sure when you finish, but I definitely need to let it go now and move on, I think. Hi, Coral. Oh, hang on. Coral's in Cooma, New South Wales. Where's Cooma? I'm going to look that up. Cooma with a C. Mary Ladrick, I bought it the other week from Big W before lockdown. Brilliant. It's your lockdown book. Mary, that's really funny. One of the most surreal things that's happened to me so far, because I've been doing media, which I've never done before, and I've had reviews, and that's all really new, and it's weird. It's like reading about a book someone else wrote, But I think the most surreal thing that's happened to me so far is my sister, who lives in Perth, emailed me and she said, OMG, I just saw your book in Big W. That was a really surreal moment, I don't think I ever expected to see a book of mine in Big W. So that's amazing. And it's so great. I'm going to tell her that, that you went and bought it. So, yeah, it's seeing it in bookshops is strange and awesome. I've been going around Wellington taking photos, and I've got friends sending me photos from other places. Melinda, just coming out of restrictions Friday. That's regional? Melbourne staying in? Yeah, okay. I'm really keeping my fingers crossed because, yeah, you people need to get out. I'm a Richmond Tigers fan too, and so I'm paying attention to the footy and seeing where people can play. And, there's just so many things, aren't there, it's just so different. Annabelle says, the sense of landscape is so strong in your book. How important was this to you when writing the book? Thanks. It was hugely important, and I kind of feel like there's two landscapes in this book. There's the external landscape because it's this Australian place I kind of think of it as a place that floats 6 inches on top of the real Australia. It floats just above Australia. So it's a kind of a version. It's my version of it. And I've cheated, I didn't mean it to be Australia. When I started, I wasn't sure what kind of landscape it was going to be, and it just came out that way. And originally I wasn't sure about it because I thought, but I want to do this and this, and what if it doesn't fit, perfectly? And eventually I just decided that I could make it Australian without it being exactly the same. So people who've read it will know that there are some key differences, like there's a gulf between the west of the continent and the rest of the continent. You have to cross by boat. And I do know that's not the case. I grew up in Western Australia, so, I know that, in WA we tend to feel like we're separate from the rest of the country, but, I've crossed the Nullarbor many times. So I kind of put water where the Nullarbor is. But what I did landscape-wise for the external landscape was I'm over here. I live in Aotearoa, and I have for 15 years. And I mean, I come back, but I haven't lived in Australia for a long time, and I had to do a kind of immersion from a distance. And so I spent a lot of time reading old diaries, looking at old photos, remembering places I'd been that were really significant to me, and really immersing myself and reading other writers writing about them as well, and researching them, plants and animals, that kind of thing. And then I sort of pieced them together. So, I put some things closer together than they really are, or, sort of out of order. And I made this landscape, which is harsh, but also at times really beautiful. And even though Lee, the main character, is struggling to get through it, sometimes it sneaks up on her. There are points when she just sees where she is. She gets stranded for a period of time when she's injured at a dry salt lake, and there's a kind of a magical thing that happens there. And so there's that landscape, which is sort of bleak, but not only bleak. And then there's also what I think of as her internal landscape. She remembers a lot as she's walking, and she's thinking a lot. And a lot of that is quite dark, especially at the beginning, because, she's lost her daughter. She doesn't know if her daughter's alive or not even. She's just hoping. She's lost her partner, and she's also really down on herself because she doesn't think she was a good mother when she had her kid. She never wanted a kid. She didn't want to bring a child into a world that she saw as having no future. And she had a child against her better judgment because the person she fell in love with wanted a kid and was hopeful. And so she spends a lot of time remembering things she got wrong, and she got a lot of things wrong. To me, that's parenthood. But for her, she's dark. She's walking along. She's in this state of huge anxiety and regret and grief. And those two landscapes, the internal one and the external one, sort of run parallel in a way. And they also kind of change together as Lee is changed through the book, through things that happen to her, and her feelings change, I guess. And so these landscapes kind of change too. Kylie, Oh, Julie, Brunswick West. I lived in East Brunswick for a couple of years. Yeah, I know where you are. Kylie Fent, how did the idea of the cover come about? Oh, the cover's beautiful, isn't it? I'm so happy with it. I can't believe it's my book. We had a long conversation. My publisher Ben Ball at Scribner, who's incredibly smart and experienced and read the book so well. You know, I remember he sent me this list of images that he'd pulled out of the book, and one of the early ones was the idea of a trapped or snared animal or roadkill, because Lee, among other things, she's very good at surviving. She's had a kind of itinerant youth, and she's learned bushcraft, and she can trap, she can snare. She's good at finding roadkill and cooking it. She's good at distilling, getting water out of the ground. Yeah, she has a lot of skills, and so this sort of snaring and trapping of animals is a bit of a theme in the book. And we tossed up a number of ideas, but I love that. And then he found, I'm looking at the book because, an artist called Kate Breakey, and that hair is her image, and it's a beautiful image. And then a woman called Sandy Cull, who's an incredible designer, put it together. We had a problem because unsheltered is a long word, and so it had to be broken up in different ways. We figured that was the best way. And there was a lot of conversation about pink, about the use of pink, because there's pink on the front, but there's also pink on the back. And I was a bit hesitant about pink. I wasn't sure about it, but I'm really happy. I think it looks amazing. So yeah, I guess the hair was that idea of something really literal from the book, something that's a real theme. You know, everything in the book is kind of about survival for everybody, really. But also, it's a really vulnerable looking, I think, and in some ways, it kind of looks childish. And you know, at the heart of this book is this child, this really young, innocent, very determined child who you mostly meet through Lee's memories. And so, when I look at that, I think of Lee hunting and surviving, but I also think of Matty, this kid who believes in a better place, something she calls the best place, and this is the place that she believes you would live if you could live anywhere. And she plays a game through the book about how you get to the best place, which is an idea that sort of really affected me. You know, the idea that this kid has hope. And then there's this open question about whether the best place is real or is there. Where are we? Sorry for lose this. I'm just trying to make sure I don't miss people. Lynn Kelly, it must have felt fantastic to hold the book in your hands when it was finished. I tell you, it was amazing because the book came out in Australia, I think it was on the 5th of May, and you know, my publishers emailed me and they sent me flowers. It was really neat. But at that point, because of delays, I had one copy of the book, and I felt like I was the only person in New Zealand who had a copy of the book. I'm not sure if that's true. Probably a few other people, but it wasn't in shops or anything. And so this is my reading copy. I don't know if you can see that over the image on screen. Sorry, that's why I keep moving it along. You can see it's kind of well thumbed, but I carried it around with me. You know, I kept taking it out to show people, and my favourite bit is there's this hair on the spine too. Really love it. Yeah, it's a lovely feeling. Wendy Kendall, what was your work experience before allowing yourself to concentrate on writing? Oh, Wendy, I work in an office now and have done for years in a creative writing course, but you know, I don't teach. I work in the office. God, I've done so many kinds of jobs. I haven't had a career of any kind, but I've done everything from, you know, picking tomatoes to I was a cleaner for years, hospitality. I did call centre work. I ran a street theatre company. God, I did I made tofu. That was one of the oddest jobs I ever had in Dublin in the 90s. I worked in a factory, but it was just me. There was a sort of a factory, and then inside the factory was this tiny factory where I would work 9-hour shifts making tofu. Yeah, and then I worked for Friends of the Earth when I lived in Melbourne. I worked on anti-nuclear campaigns. A lot of that time I did. I was involved in a lot of activism, sort of environmental activism and I guess social justice activism. And a lot of that has ended up in the book, places I went to doing that work and people I met, things I saw or experienced. So I guess everything feeds in, I mean, even my office job, which is I work with great people and I'm around writers all the time, which is really neat. But some of the weird language, the kind of dystopian language in this book comes straight out of I don't know, things like web communication meetings and stuff. It's all material. You hear something and go, oh, that's great. I'm using that in the book. I have a notebook at work that I take to meetings, and I've got my minutes about things and stuff. And then I'll turn a page and I've got this line that I wrote that I heard or something that I thought of that's ended up in the book. So yeah, I guess work is material, and most writers, unless they're incredibly lucky, have to keep that job. So, Jane Tara, what's your work day look like when you write? I have a day in the week that I write. I've managed to sort of sort that out. I work around school hours, but I've been in my job a long time, and I work with writers, and I have a really understanding co-worker. So for quite a long time now, I've had one day in the week when I write. And I'm trying to build that up to 2 days. Oh God, I'd love to say I've got an amazing routine, but I don't. I find writing really early in the morning is actually great. I wouldn't have said that in my 20s, but that's a sort of a time when nobody needs you, and there's something about getting up and writing before you've spoken. I think something about like how close you are to sleep and dreams that I find really good. But I also have a dog that I have to walk really early in the morning, so I don't do that as often as I should. There's a cafe down the road. On a Wednesday, my kid goes off to school and I tend to walk down with her, and then I go and sit there for an hour or two. I actually find working in places like that, in sort of public places with a bit of background noise, really good. Working at home, just where I am here, just at the table in the lounge, I do that too. I'll write anywhere, really. I write on the bus. I write at swimming lessons. I used to write in the playground when my daughter was younger. I was always the person sitting there, with a piece of paper, and people would say, what are you doing? Yeah, so I would love to. I think my ideal, if I could just arrange my life to suit myself, was I'd go somewhere for 4 or 5 days a month and just be on my own in a house with no internet and just write solidly, and then the rest of the month could be for everything else. That's what I'd love to do. Not there yet. Tracy Anderson, love the cover. Thank you. I love it. It's very beautiful. I'm going to stop looking at it. Annabelle, I won't spoil it for others yet, but OMG, there are some heart-stopping moments in this. Thank you. Did you feel as tense writing them as the reader feels reading them? It's funny. There's a lot of, I don't want to spoil it for people either, but there is a lot of pretty grim stuff in this book. I don't actually feel like it's a really grim book myself. I guess I'm familiar with the material, but I see other things in it, kind of slightly more hopeful things. But there's no denying a lot of really tough things happen to Lee. I mean, I gave her such a hard time. I threw everything at her. I didn't know how she was going to get out of a lot of situations I put her in, and I definitely wouldn't have got out of them. But the sort of the action scenes, the really tense, stressful scenes, or the ones that people tell me are really sort of stressful to read, hard in your mouth kind of scenes, as a writer, they're great. They're fun, Sometimes you'll draw on a feeling or an experience you've had, and that experience might not be great or fun, but crafting it is really enjoyable. You know, it was almost like the harder things got for Lee, the more fun I was having, you know, because it's all challenges. I write long, a bit like I talk. I overwrite, and I'd love to not do that, but that is just how I write. And then I spend a lot of time cutting and cutting and cutting. And I mean, like I said, even when I'm reading from the finished book, I will be quietly editing words that I think I didn't need. And so for the action scenes, I wanted the book to be as exciting as it could be, because there's a lot of ideas I'm exploring in there, and there's quite a lot of sad things and, you know, all sorts of things. So I needed it to be really exciting, and I had to teach myself how to do that. I think I learned a lot writing this book, and I also had a workshop group around me. So I'd workshop scenes. I mean, that scene I read at the start in the shelter house, where Lee's ambushed, I remember workshopping that scene and getting feedback from people. And it's even things like rhythm and beats and where you rush on and where you stop. But a lot of it is just about how little do you need to make it work. And that's a great challenge for a writer. So, yeah, if you read this and you find it, there are hard things in it, I don't want you to think that I was, you know, I was having a hard time. I was having a great time. Yeah. Oh, lots of people love the cover. Thank you so much. Yeah, I can't take any credit for the cover, but I love it too. Shanda, I can't wait to get my hands on it. That's awesome. I think you can. I think you can in most places in Australia, including Big W. And Lynette says, did you write on a computer or mainly paper writing? I do both. Because of the amount that I tried to write when I was doing that first draft, which was 100,000 words in 8 months, I did mostly write on a computer, but I also damaged my wrist really badly. I fell about halfway through the year, and I couldn't actually type. Sorry, I've just they told me to go fast. I've just been told I'm supposed to wrap up. I missed the 5-minute warning. I'll just finish this one. I couldn't type for a couple of months. I couldn't get my hand in the position, and it was sort of painful. So luckily it was my left hand. So I wrote by hand a lot, and I tried using that software as well, where just the free version where you talk and it, you know, dictates. But maybe because of my accent, oh my God, yeah. At one point I remember I wrote a line like, the gulls woke her, and it typed McDonald's worker, you know. And so I just gave up and wrote by hand. So both is the answer. I've got to stop. Thank you so much for your messages. This was fun. I thought it was going to feel more like talking to myself, but I'm going to go back after this and read everything that everyone sent and try and work out where you all are. Thank you. I hope you do enjoy it if you read it, and I hope you enjoy whatever else you're reading. And if you're in lockdown, yeah, we're thinking about you over here. We're following the news so closely, and we want to get back over there as soon as we can. Kia ora.